But no, yeah, thanks for your time, Iago. And I just thought it'd be good to chat because I know you're taking over as chair of the PBCC.
That's right.
And so that was actually the first question I had for you, being incoming chair. Can you, in your view, sort of tell us what the PBCC does, in your opinion, and what you see as its primary function in the plant breeding world?
Sure. Yeah, it's funny. Probably if you asked 5 different people, you'd get 5 slightly different flavors of answer on that. For me, the PBCC has been around a lot longer than I've been involved in it. So I think it was founded back in 2006, something like that. And I've really only been involved with it for the last 3 or 4 years. So I think there's probably been an arc to what the function of the committee has been over that time. I think when it originally started, the idea was that it was at a time when there wasn't really a voice to public plant breeding in the U.S. There wasn't kind of a central voice for that, and so the PBCC was envisioned to kind of step up and take that role. Especially when you look across the nation at the land-grant university system, we have a great network of public breeders that are largely unconnected from one another and yet represent a great investment at the national level and something that's really important to the food system moving forward. And so the PBCC wanted to step into that role to give a voice and also give a forum to try to address what are some of the issues facing plant breeders at a system level, to be kind of a clearinghouse for getting information. What is the status? What's sort of the health of plant breeding in the country? What is our capacity, and trying to assess those kinds of things. And I think a lot of those functions continue with the PBCC. And so it's sort of enhancing that communication among breeders and assembling information, promoting plant breeding, trying to make plant breeding a little bit more visible to the general public, also to policymakers, to federal agencies. And in so doing, trying to identify what are the gaps, what are the opportunities. And so, I think big picture, that's what PBCC is about.
And so what made you, as a researcher, I'm sure you have plenty on your plate as it is, what made you want to be chair of PBCC?
Well, I didn't start off wanting to be chair of PBCC. These things sort of happen. I was really happy. I'm at a very small land grant university. I'm at the University of New Hampshire. At this point, we have 2 plant breeders here, which is one more than we had about a year ago. So for me, my immediate community of plant breeding is pretty small to non-existent. So the PBCC, for me, was this kind of lifeline to my discipline, just being able to interact with folks who do the same kind of work that I do and to feel engaged in that broader community. And so for me, it was looking for a lot of that connection, but as these things happen, as soon as you become connected, you realize there are things that need to be done, and there are opportunities and ways to contribute as well. And so it's kind of taken its natural course.
Can you tell us about your breeding program, what you research, and how PBCC is of help to that?
Sure. I'm within the world of plant breeding. I guess there are breeders who work on plants that people know about and make a big splash in the economy and are really important. And then there's breeders like me. I'm interested in the small, weird stuff. My interest is really in what you would call underutilized plant genetic resources, underutilized or neglected crops. And I kind of came to that through an international development path. Especially working, with like African orphan crops and that kind of thing. But so my interest is really of the tens of thousands edible plant species on the planet. Our food system is based on relatively few of those. And so there's a lot of opportunity to develop a lot of these genetic resources, especially as we look toward probably unprecedented climate situations, biotic and abiotic stresses, but also market opportunities for populations looking for new and novel things. So my interest is really those sort of marginal, semi-domesticated, not quite there crops. My biggest program is with kiwi berries here in New England. This is a crop that has been known to have promise for 150 years, but there's been fairly little systematic research on that. So that's what I do here in New England, is working on kiwi berry development for this region.
Yeah, speaking of kiwi, you guys made a couple years ago, you're in the headlines making a pretty major development in the kiwi realm. And can you talk a little bit about that, why it's important?
Oh, I don't know about big contributions, but I've been working on kiwi berries here for about 10 years. And over that time, I feel like we have moved the needle on the development of that crop from something where there was very little out there to done a complete sort of a genetic analysis of what diversity do we have, building some molecular tools to help us in selection of improved lines, and just recently in the last year or so, finally rolling out some improved selections to some farms here in the region. And so for a crop that really doesn't make a blip in the economy, and very small percentage of Americans even know about it, to go from basically nothing to having varieties now being trialed on farms is a pretty big leap for us, and feels a little bit like progress.
Yeah, well, and to be successful in that, you need breeders, breeding these sorts of varieties, and the PBCC, that's, a big priority of the PBCC is to help plant breeders in their work, help facilitate those relationships, etc. And I know you couldn't be at the NAPB meeting this year, but is there one big agenda item for the PBCC right now that is of particular interest to you?
Yeah, we have several big agenda items. I think first of all, I would like to say that I think one of the biggest accomplishments of the PBCC, which was well before my time, and so I can't take credit for it at all, was the launch of the NAPB. So the NAPB, the National Association of Plant Breeders, that came out of a PBCC initiative early on and has been wildly successful. And so I think a lot of that success really it goes back to the power that the PBCC has of seeing these opportunities at the national level and getting things sort of moving so that those initiatives can take off. And with the NAPB being so wildly successful, I think those of us at PBCC are starting to sort of ask ourselves, so what's our next big thing? What is our role now because NAPB is so successful? And I think there are some of the work in the upcoming year is going to continue to be around communication. We have a sort of a program around trying to tell success stories around plant breeding, getting it into the hands of the public and also getting into the hands of decision makers. That's kind of a comic book style based communication, and we'll have some of those continue to roll out over the coming year. We'll continue to be surveying for national plant breeding capacity. That's ongoing work for us. But the big one I'm excited about is in our conversations over the last year or so, recognizing that one of the gaps we have in the public plant breeding world is a real lack of best practices around the transition of breeding programs. And this is something that those of us in the public plant breeding world at land grant institutions, this happens all the time. You'll have a breeder that works for a long, long time and then retires, or perhaps premature death, or moves on to industry or moves on to another institution. And there's a lot of plant genetic resources. There's a lot of knowledge that we need to capture and make sure that we don't lose, and that we transition either to the next breeder or wherever those resources are going to come to fruition. And as we look across the country, it's really variable about how that is approached. We have cases of really well done transitions. We have cases of, frankly, fairly chaotic and failed transitions. And so one of the things that I think the PBCC is in a position to tackle is to understand how should we be approaching this in the public plant breeding world. And so we're hoping to get a planning grant put together, really try to tap the community for case studies, what has worked well, what hasn't worked well, and to see if we can come up with sort of a white paper or a document that could lead some of that work and get that conversation going so that these transitions can be made without setting back a lot of the work that's been done.
Yeah, and that's what's happening at the NAPB meeting this year. Is a lot of conversations about those exact things, and in regards to this year's meeting specifically, is even though you can't be there, is there one thing that you hope to see come out of it, or that you're really looking forward to hearing about afterwards?
Yeah, I would say we'd like to use the NAPB, this particular meeting, to communicate again that PBCC exists. I think that a lot of people don't know that we exist. We're maybe sort of the less flashy cousin of the NAPB. So as always, we want to communicate that we are out there, and also that we're not a closed group. Anyone can attend our monthly meetings. We're looking for contributions and insight from anyone in the plant breeding community, whether you're a breeder who's been doing it for 50 years or you're a graduate student just getting involved in plant breeding. So I hope that we have some success in communicating that, and also in seeing who might be interested to be involved in the germplasm transition work that we hope to get underway this coming year.
And how can people get involved with PBCC? How can they get more information?
Sure. Well, if you're at the NAPB, there will be a table for the PBCC there. We'll have some representatives at that table. So walk over, don't be scared. Look at our comic book covers, ask some questions. We'll have a place to sign up if you're interested in being involved in the germplasm transition work. And if you want to get involved and attend our monthly meetings, these are Zoom meetings, so you can Zoom in from anywhere. You can ask the person at the table how to do that, or you can send me an email as well, and I can help get that set up.